BitPro.
Good morning, I'm Mark from BitPro. I'd like to spend some time talking about GPU mining and where it fits in the broader context of the mining industry. Like many of you here, mining was my gateway drug into crypto. Started out as a hobbyist in 2014, and by 2017, as crypto and mining exploded, BitPro was a full-time business building and managing mining farms. And then 2018 happened. New builds ground to a halt, and mining farms big and small started shutting down. As the need for services to build mining farms dried up, we saw the need for assistance in converting this valuable hardware into liquid capital. Since then, we've helped hundreds of miners, big and small, gracefully exit GPU mining or turn over their aging hardware, and will continue to work servicing the GPU mining sector for as long as it exists. And a lot of people would have you believe that in the near future, GPU mining will no longer exist, and we couldn't disagree more with that, and that's what I want to talk about today. I'm an unashamed supporter of proof of work, and I always will be. I don't believe proof of stake is an adequate replacement for proof of work. Bitcoin is the king of proof of work, but Ethereum is entrenched at this point as the Bitcoin alternative, and Ethereum mining remains dominated by GPUs. But for miners, the elephant in the room is the long-awaited transition to proof of stake that will supposedly kill proof of work on Ethereum for good, or so everyone says. I don't think things will actually work out that way. So why is that? As a crypto, Ethereum's success must depend on it being legitimately decentralized, because if it's not, as a currency, it's just another fiat currency, and it's a bad one at that. As a platform, it'd be just a slow, expensive alternative to a token platform on AWS. So in the long run, it's either decentralized or it's dead. For it to be reasonably considered decentralized, by definition, it would have to prove that no one faction has total control or has the power to completely eliminate other stakeholders, such as miners. Proof of stake is now years overdue, and it's reasonable to assume that the current roadmap will take 2 to 3 times longer than expected. So where does this leave miners? The current roadmap, taken at face value, still leaves several years of fruitful mining and many more if it continues to be delayed. The longer proof of stake takes, the more decentralized Ethereum will become, and the more likely that we end up with a hybrid system where proof of work never really goes away. So I think that hybrid system is the most likely future. And why is that? Because proof of stake is actually an extremely risky transition. The most prevalent application on Ethereum is DeFi, which doesn't require the throughput of proof of stake. Finance is by its nature a very conservative business, and proof of work has proven reliability, so DeFi is going to cautiously side with proof of work until proof of stake has years of proven reliability. From a miner standpoint, it's an existential threat. Corporations like NVIDIA and large GPU miners like you guys are not going to be complicit in their own destruction and just walk away from this market. As this existential threat becomes a more clear and present danger, the knives are going to come out and things will get very contentious, and we already saw foreshadowing of this with the Prague Pow debates. That was nothing compared to what would be coming with this. From an investor standpoint, they're just in it for the money. As all things being equal, they'd prefer more scarcity, but really the only cost of proof of work is a small inflation from the newly minted Ether. This current inflation is less than 5% a year, which is honestly less than the typical daily volatility of Ether. So in other words, the actual cost to miners is just noise in the graph. And developers, they believe their new tool will work, and it might, but there's probably going to be a few voices of reason saying maybe we shouldn't throw out the old system entirely. So because there's going to be resistance from multiple stakeholders and a very high likelihood of conflict if it's pushed forward, and because the actual cost of the system is pretty low, if the system is actually meaningfully decentralized enough to succeed anyway, abandonment of proof of work is pretty unlikely. So if proof of work isn't going anywhere, why should a miner choose GPUs over ASICs? This is a topic all of its own, but in a nutshell, ETH hash has proven to be extremely ASIC resistant. If it was possible to produce an ASIC that makes GPUs completely obsolete, we would have seen it by now, just like we have with almost every other coin. GPUs also have alternative sources of income, such as machine learning, and these sources are proliferating and likely to continue proliferating in the future. Even in the worst case scenario, as general purpose hardware, its residual value is relative to demand from many places, not just miners. So if Ethereum mining is probably safe long term, what about short term? Ethereum will remain the only meaningful proof of work for large GPU miners. No other coin can support industrial scale miners. Alternatives like Ravencoin or Grin, they output a small fraction of the revenue that Ethereum does. And these coins just can't support the scale of the current GPU mining industry by themselves. That being said, there are certain classes of hardware that are in near-term danger. The 4 GB DAG limit will completely take E3s and 4 gig GPUs offline by the end of the year. It's difficult to measure the impact of this accurately, but it should take about 30 to 60% of the current hash rate offline. That's going to be great for everyone else, but there's no nice way to say it. 4 gig ASICs are going to become worthless. And 4 gig GPUs can in theory mine other coins, but there isn't really a viable business model for any large miner to continue mining with 4 gig cards. Too many cards are going to be fighting over too small a pie. We've spoken with a lot of miners, and this seems to be everyone's plan A, and I don't expect this to work out well for anyone. You're all basically going to drive each other into the ground fighting over the table scraps coming from Ravencoin. And once most miners realize this, the market price for 4 gig GPUs is just going to crash from a glut of supply. So the smart miners are going to want to get ahead of this. The good news is that there's still a few months left before the rug gets pulled out from under 4 gig hardware. But a critical distinction here is that there's not going to be demand from other miners for this hardware because they can't use 4 gig cards either. So this is a major challenge, and that's where BitPro comes in. We specialize in large-scale GPU mining liquidation. We are far and away the #1 retailer of used GPU hardware, almost by an order of magnitude. Anyone who bought a used GPU in the past 2 years was roughly 10 times more likely to have bought it from us than anyone else. Almost all of our hardware is sourced from GPU miners. So we're the channel that makes it viable to realistically factor in the resale value of GPUs into your ROI equation. A major point of distinction here is we are not brokers or middlemen. We provide the end-to-end service with minimal risk. For large transactions, we'll come on site, disassemble, and pack the hardware for transport, and we'll pay in full. No more playing telephone through brokers to flaky buyers and sellers, no more escrow headaches, and above all, no need to even contemplate the nightmare of dealing with thousands of e-commerce consumers in order to get a decent price. So our wholesale prices are fair and derive from long-term supply and demand in the broader retail market, not just the narrow and volatile mining market. We're also highly unselective. We'll purchase older hardware, obsolete hardware, even damaged hardware. For example, if you've got lots of GPUs with dead fans, that's no problem to us. We're interested not only in purchasing the GPUs, but all the associated equipment such as motherboards, CPUs, RAM, pretty much anything. For miners who are staying in the GPU mining business, we can also be a source of high quality, inexpensive pre-owned hardware, and it can be acquired in direct trade for your older, obsolete hardware. So in conclusion, regardless of what the roadmaps or even Vitalik himself says, we believe Ethereum and GPU mining is here to stay. GPUs provide a lower risk alternative to ASICs as they retain their value even in the worst case scenario. And BitPro is a solution that makes including that resale value in your ROI equation viable at scale. We look forward to hearing from anyone with GPU hardware that you're looking to sell or turn over. Connect with us here at Mining Disrupt or find us at bitproit.com or just Google BitPro. We're not hard to find. Thank you for your time.